Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Vision Board. Today we have Poornima Couto, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of SLK Software with us. We're going to have an interesting conversation with her. Poornima spent close to a decade at Wipro heading the brand and communications and marketing before she joined SLK. So welcome Poornima. It's a privilege talking to you today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
It's my pleasure.
So why don't we start our conversation with something interesting that's been happening over the past, few weeks, essentially, or few days, and that's about the talk about Facebook changing its name to Meta, and it's not something new. I think close to half a decade back, we also, witnessed Google, forming Alphabet. And what's the reason? Why do you think these things happen? Because Google, for example, was a great brand, and Facebook is a great brand, a very trustworthy brand. Why would they need to change their brand names?
See, in the past, a lot of organizations have rebranded themselves to move away from consumer scrutiny, right? And as we all know, there has been, a lot of questionable practices and issues that both of these brands have actually faced, right? Gone are the days when, organizations can simply rebrand themselves to sort of walk away from that scrutiny, right? Because now consumers are extremely savvy. So they want to kind of hold brands in a very high standard, and they expect that brands embody their values and really deliver on their brand promise at every instance. So when brands falter, consumers are quick to call them out. So I've seen, we've seen this happening, right, in the past. And many, many years ago, another IT services company, they moved from consulting to IT services and
Yeah.
they changed their name entirely. You probably know which one I'm talking about. But, Google has done that, and now Facebook has gone into Meta. So this seems to be something that organizations are sort of resorting to. And this is a very by the book approach, if you ask me, for a rebranding, exercise. But if organizations like Facebook and Meta, which is now Meta, is able to walk away from the fire that they're currently under and really shed all of those issues and go into a completely new avatar from within, then yes, I think the rebranding is definitely going to be worthwhile and really be true to what they want to sort of live up to in the consumer's eyes.
Understood. I think that's an interesting take. I also had another thought around this, and this essentially emanates from what we witnessed in the Xerox case study. Xerox became a kind of a synonym to the category in which it operated. So, and that really didn't work well for Xerox, because Xerox is also an inventor of perhaps mouse or the GUI, but people don't credit Xerox enough for the other inventions. But Xerox has been typecasted as a photocopier company. I think that's one branding challenge that maybe Google foresaw, because Google thought that we are not just a search engine, because they were also being typecasted as just a search engine. But Google, of course, bought
Very
Android,
possible.
and it had YouTube, and they would wanted to kind of control the operating system of mobile, essentially. That was perhaps the reason to form Alphabet, and then Google becomes one component only for Alphabet. Maybe for Facebook also, they have a vision to become the operating system of the future, because they are talking about 3D, they are talking about AR and VR, and they just want to say that Facebook is just one component of Meta. We have Instagram, we have WhatsApp, and we have a lot of new technologies that we're trying to, come into. But very, very interesting on that, and no one can forget that there are scrutiny and privacy issues,
Yeah.
lingering on for Facebook as well. So that is
Yeah.
indeed an interesting one. Yeah.
True.
But coming home and talking about the trends, we also saw the Nykaa's IPO.
Yeah.
We also saw what a success it achieved. What's your take on that? I mean, at the end of the day, Nykaa is essentially a e-commerce platform. So far, it doesn't have its own brand that it's selling. It's essentially selling third-party brands through it.
Yeah.
It's a typical marketplace in one sense. Uh, how do you see the success of Nykaa? motivating other startups and especially the women entrepreneurs in India?
Yeah. So, I think that the Nykaa IPO has been a phenomenal story, right? Um, I think, in fact, it's probably been one of the most profitable companies to, go into IPO in recent months, right? In some of the other IPOs that have happened recently.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's all about how Falguni Nair saw that there is a need, there is a gap in what customers and consumers are looking for, and just went ahead and filled that need, right? And she was so passionate about it, and she just kept at it, right? And I think it's absolutely inspiring, that what Nykaa has done, and I'm sure it's going to be like a huge confidence booster for a lot of women entrepreneurs, because for them it's going to be like, hey, listen, this isn't something we can't do. So I'm sure a lot of women can relate to this now, and I'm sure it's going to be inspiring for them to want to really go after their passions and turn those dreams into realities, and start investing themselves into building products and services that they truly believe in. I think it's that belief and the need sweet spot that we're looking at, and I think it's a phenomenal story, and I'm really sort of excited to see how this entire story unfolds going forward.
In fact, there was a time when people would, uh, tell you that small niches will not work. You have to be big like a Flipkart or Amazon,
Yeah,
and for that to, for one to become a huge e-commerce platform like them, you need to have deep pockets.
yeah,
And in any case, there are network effects at play there, and so it's very difficult for a small time startup to really envision a huge opening like what Nykaa did. But I think today with Nykaa, there is an opportunity for startups to find small niches and explode those niches into various business monetization ideas and
exactly.
become.
Yeah, exactly. It's niche is definitely a huge advantage, but also ensuring that you're you know packaging what you're offering to the customer in the right way and filling that need in at the right moment is very, very crucial. So
Absolutely.
I think it's very, very interesting, the story.
Exactly, the consumer experience, as you rightly pointed out, that's extremely important. And you also said Nykaa was profitable already, uh,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
compared to Zomato, which had almost a similar valuation, but Nykaa was
Yeah, but
able
look at their look at their stock prices after they
after.
took it.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that also brings us to the metrics. What are the metrics that as marketers, because some people say profitability, some people say consumer experience or customer experience, but within experience also there are multiple matrices that as marketers we need to look at.
Yeah.
Uh, what are those metrics, key metrics as a marketer you see within your organization, or you would suggest uh, startups to look at?
See, some of the larger metrics in terms of what a marketing campaign does for you, or what your marketing strategy is doing for the business in terms of revenue, profitability, bringing in new customers. Those things will never go away, right? Those things are always
Right.
going to stay.
Absolutely.
But I think, especially in the last couple of years, let's say the two COVID years that we've all lived through, um, because of the way, we've started engaging with customers, which has become almost fully digital, right? There's hardly been any in-person interactions in the last couple of years with our consumers and customers. So, through digital channels, I think the metrics and the insights that you're able to get is phenomenal, right?
Absolutely.
So, those metrics in terms of your your cost per lead, your cost per acquisition, customer retention, customer lifetime value, those are very, very crucial metrics that
Correct.
people should constantly keep an eye on. And the kind of insights and data these channels throw up, I mean, the amount of sophisticated data that you're getting, it's absolutely possible to nuance your metrics even more. And marketers, like, everybody knows that it's one of the most important things is to be able to show value to business. So while all this happens, I know vanity metrics will thrive alongside all of this, but I think it's important to show these actionable metrics to business, and which will kind of really hold marketers in good stead in the long run.
No, absolutely. And we also understand that these metrics, these data insights would not be possible if we don't have the automation tools or
Yeah.
MarTech tools with us.
Yeah.
Now, that brings us to the question that, what do you need? Because there are so many tools
Yeah.
that you could use. Uh, how would you go about deciding whether I need a tool or not? And if yes, then, where should I start from? What kind of tools do I need to have?
Yeah. So I don't think there is a question of whether you need a tool or not anymore, right?
Sure.
Because and in fact, even before COVID happened or the pandemic, came into our lives, I think tech marketing was something that was already prevalent. People were already adopting a lot of tech tools, and I know and a martech stack into their plan and into their mix. In fact, I would say nearly 25% of budgets go into investing in your martech stack, right? Your marketing budget. So that's a very, very crucial aspect. But having said that, the plethora of tools and technologies available out there to a marketer, it's so different from what it used to be 20 years ago.
Correct.
I think, if you ask me, I would say 20 years ago we were groping in the dark, right? It's
Absolutely.
no longer the case now, because you have a tool for every single thing. You can get insights into every single aspect and every single channel of what you do and how you say and where you're saying it, right? And your engagement with the customers. So but the flip side is also that it's mushroom. That market is huge now, and to a very large extent it's also very unstructured, which can be daunting for marketing leaders. So my advice would be to start off simple, keep it basic, right? Because getting overwhelmed is very easy in a situation like this. So I think it's important to really truly assess your organization or your business's needs and what is the goal that you have, that you want to achieve through marketing, and then look at what is available to you that will fit into those areas and look at that sweet spot. And start off very, very simple. Keep at least a basic marketing automation tool in place, a couple of listening tools, social listening tools, any other tool that can help you with kind of monitoring and campaign tracking tools. I think if you have this much in place to get started off, I think we're in a really good place. Once you're in a steady state within the organization, and even your marketing organization is in a steady state, then it's time for you to experiment, and do small pilots in shorter sprints. Try it out with different, and then see which one sort of works the best for your need and your marketing organization. So I think that's probably would be the way I would suggest to go about it.
No, absolutely. I think I agree with you 100%. Even in our own case, and
Yeah.
I have seen in some other organizations' case also, lots of time we, in our enthusiasm, invest into tools. But the biggest challenge comes when these tools don't talk to each other. And
Yeah.
hence, your social listening is not talking to your CRM, for instance,
Yeah.
and your CRM is not talking to your marketing automation. And even if you have a platform which can do all these things, then a lot of times in larger organizations, slightly larger, medium and large, their CRM systems or their automation tools often are not integrated with different departments, or so maybe different departments have different tools,
Yeah.
or even sometimes if it's a channel based organization, the channels have different tools, they have different tools. So I think the important part, of course, also is that there should be a kind of a connectivity between the tools as well. That's important.
Absolutely. And it's important to ensure that that's frictionless, right? Because for sure there has to be that connection between your sales CRM and your marketing automation and your marketing CRM, right?
Right.
But ensuring that it is absolutely frictionless, and the information flow and the workflows that you set up are really sort of feeding into every functions individual objectives and needs, and
Correct.
and they're able to kind of take actionable insights out of those. Then you're in a good place.
In a good place. But that
Yeah.
also brings some kind of a headache for the head of marketing, because somewhere I have seen that the head of marketing now has so much of data which they don't need to really get into on a day-to-day basis. But
Yeah.
since there is a lot of data, it automatically creates some kind of a pressure to see that data, to see what kind of insights can we get from that data, which may be kind of redundant at some times.
Yeah.
But apart from that, what other struggles do you see today with lots of technology in the coming into marketing, lots of automation coming into marketing. Do you see that there is a, we are kind of foregoing creativity in favor of technology? Is that happening? Or as I said, is there some different type of struggle that marketers are now facing?
See, I think one of the struggles that marketing as a function and marketers have always faced, and I would say it continues to be so in many places, right, is that showing the real value of marketing to business,
Hmm.
right, and true business impact that you're able to create through marketing and showcasing that, I think, has been always a struggle, and which is the reason why we need to be able to track the right metrics. Like you rightly said, you get a ton of data, right, but how do you actually filter it out and only take what is relevant to you and correlate it to business impact? Okay, that's
Hmm.
so important. And to do that, the struggle is to find the right kind of people, talent. There is a skill gap in that space. So I think it's important to find the right kind of people who are able to feed marketing heads and CMOs the right amount of insights and actionable insights and correlate it to business impact. I think that is a big problem area. And I think if we're able to sort of, solve that problem of that skill gap that I'm talking about, I think then, the whole being, sort of buried under mounds of data and also not being able to show the right kind of value would all be solved at the same time.
At the same time, and I think we do have artificial intelligence, which has kind of come to the rescue of marketers in one sense, because with robotic process automation or AI,
Yeah.
perhaps we would see a much more streamlined way of delivering the right data to the right people at the right time.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to come to our rescue. But having said that, with the help of automation technology, now AI also coming into picture, how do you see the entire brand building process impacted by these technologies? What kind of the brand creation exercise, uh, will it change? Will it transform because of AI and other
Yeah.
technological means?
Absolutely. So, businesses and industries all over the world are adopting AI in a big way, right? And you see AI not being limited to the CIO organization anymore. Lines of business, business heads, everybody understands, what AI can do for them and how it can, help them reimagine possibilities.
Mhm.
And, why should marketing be any different, right? It's absolutely critical that AI becomes more mainstream into your marketing mix. At this point, it isn't. People are still, sort of experimenting with it, and it's, I would say it's still at its infancy stage.
Right.
But having said that, I think it's only a matter of time before AI comes in mainstream, and you sort of see AI as something that can augment our efforts in brand building, in marketing, in everything that we try to do in that space. Um, so from a brand building standpoint of view, AI can ingest data and throw up some very unique insights.
Right.
So imagine the kind of insights it can show up for you on your types of customers, your types of, what do you do, when do you do, where do you do, and how do you do it, right? In the most efficient way and in the quickest possible way, rather than us taking a whole year to generate those X amount of leads. Imagine AI coming and doing that for you in just 1 week, just because you have the right kind of insights and you know exactly what needs to be done and it's telling you what to do. So and that's just with lead generation, right? So with on the aspect of brand building, because you're able to resonate better with your audience, you're able to
Mhm.
take the right kind of messages to your audience, and you're able to hyper personalize yourself. So
Absolutely.
as a brand, I am unique to you and you and you. So that hyper personalization comes in very strong, and that I think will really sort of shape the way we build brands, and it's going to be a much shorter journey as opposed to the what it is currently in terms of the brand building.
No, absolutely. And I also think maybe you will agree with me that the customer experience before they buy or invest into a product or a service,
Yeah.
that can also be powered by AI through your, chat bots, for instance.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And
And you see that happening in the retail industry in a big way already.
big way already.
Yeah, yeah,
So in retail, of course, you get AI driven insights into what people prefer within a retail. Is that what you're pointing out at?
Yeah, consumer preferences, and also suggestions, right? Because you bought something, you're actually getting auto suggestions.
Suggestions also. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
all AI.
Correct, correct.
Right? So yeah,
So AI is helping both the customers and the brands
and the brands.
simultaneously,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's the revolution that's
And for the customers, you are becoming more favorable to a brand because you feel like, okay, this brand understands your needs and showing you only what you need and not confusing you with 10,000 things. So that way you're becoming a lot more closer to the brand, and your relationship with the brand is just becoming stronger.
absolutely, absolutely. But that also brings us to another, challenge as marketers. There was a coin term sometime back, CMTO, Chief Marketing Technology Officer,
Yeah.
and that's because marketers today perhaps spend more money on acquiring technology than the IT department. So somewhere they are also responsible for buying technology for their department, and which essentially leads us to the question, and the point that you also made was the lack of skill sets, or the struggle that we see in terms of the skill sets, the right skill sets. What kind of skill sets do you think marketers should acquire now to succeed?
So, if you ask me, in an ideal world, marketers should, train both their left brain and their right brain, right? It's very, very important to be able to analyze, have logical reasoning and thinking, and, be able to really crunch that data, right? While at the same time, ensure that the creative aspect of you as a marketer never dies out. Because for businesses, if you see in any organization, any sort of creativity stems from the marketing organization in any company. Okay. So I think it's very important to not lose that creativity and the creative aspect of the marketing personality, so to speak. And so it's very, very important to maintain both, right? It's no longer about, back in the days, especially, when they say market, they used to equate advertising to marketing many, many years ago, right? And that at that point, it was just all about creativity. It doesn't matter, what impact it has, but it's
Hmm.
just a very creative ad campaign.
Correct, correct.
Okay, and then at the same time, in recent years, you're seeing that there is so much of logical thinking in terms of how do you really plan a campaign, and what needs to go in there, and what are the metrics, and what are the insights. But the thing is that you have to marry the two, and it's important for marketeers to ensure that they're constantly upskilling themselves in
Right.
both of these areas. I think that's very, very important to do that.
Absolutely, makes sense. Yeah. So you also made a point that creativity has historically or always originated from the marketing, essentially. How do you see the concept of branding evolving? If branding can be linked to creativity also in some sense. So this concept of branding, and as you said, there was a time when advertising and marketing were, considered as the facets of the same coin. But today there are different functions, and there is much more research, insight, analytics, effort goes into each one of them individually. How has branding uh, overall transformed over the years?
So, I would say that as custodians of the brand, right, marketing has a lot riding on it. Okay. And brand building over the years, I would say that I think the channels in which this happened has changed.
Mhm.
But I think this is my personal belief, right? For me, a brand has to operate from a place of authenticity, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, when you are trying to build trust and a relationship with another fellow human being, you're able to do it most easily with someone who you feel is genuine and who's authentic, right? And you're able to relate to that person. Brands are no different,
Correct.
right? So if a brand is able to operate from a place of authenticity, and a brand is seen as truly authentic, I think the relationship that it builds with its customers, will stay strong and will stay long. Yeah, and I think that sort of that has evolved, and people have seen this more so often recent times than before.
No, no, absolutely makes sense. And I think technology has taught us that, internet has taught us that, because there was a time when it was believed, as you rightly said, advertising is branding. If you are visible to everyone,
Yeah.
and the brand is made. But I think
Yeah.
now is when we are realizing that branding is not just visibility, but also the way the brand collaborates with consumers, the brand experience
Yeah.
for the consumers. That also entails a lot of merit in terms of the branding part.
Yeah.
And 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 I think you would also agree that we have seen a lot of large organizations, funded organizations, investing huge amount of money on advertising only and thinking that they are making a great brand. But unless you work on the product, on the platform and experience, that is short-lived essentially.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. So is there a, how do you calculate, brand equity, or let's say what are the components for calculating brand? How do you track this entire exercise?
So, obviously, there are a lot of brand survey tools that one can adopt and, measure where they stand and how memorable they are as a brand, their awareness level, their equity, and the value of a brand. So, there are different, areas of the brand itself that can be measured using different survey tools and different, mechanisms. But I think one of the things that I would urge organizations, and I think it's missing, is because they're not able to measure it instantly, they
Hmm.
don't see value in it.
Right.
Unlike let's say an event that you go to, so you spend, let's say, $50,000 in a sponsorship and in an event, and you immediately see, okay, this many came to our, to our booth, this many showed up at our keynote, this many people actually came and saw our demo, and this many meetings we've had, and therefore we have so many leads. So instantly you're seeing an impact in that activity, similar to, any of your digital campaigns, where you immediately see how many people, downloaded your content offering, whatever it is. So, you kind of have instant gratification, which
Correct.
is not there in brand building. Okay. But it is a long-term game, and people, should be able to believe in the power of a brand in order to invest their time and efforts and money in
Correct.
brand building. And over a period of time, yes, you can certainly, start measuring it, but it's not something that will change on a daily basis. It has to be done, perhaps annually, and using the right kind of research methodologies to understand where you stand versus competition, and where are you lacking in terms of your attributes, and what are the aspirational attributes that you need to build in order to resonate and relate better to your audience. So I think it is really a long term game, and people have to be patient about it.
Right, and we need to understand that each experience count, and each experience when it becomes big, then a person starts trusting a brand, and this is exactly what happens in the case of let's say social media. Also, a lot of time when you start on the social media as a company brand, as an organizational brand, you immediately say that I need a lot of followers.
Yeah.
uh, the expectation is that we want to become like Apple. But what I think we need to all understand that, over a period of time, are we giving that experience to the user? Are we collaborating with them enough? And
Correct.
that should become huge, and then the followers will come to us. You don't become friends with people when you meet them for the first time.
Yeah.
There are a lot of interactions that happen, and then you become friends, and that is true for branding, or even online, maybe let's say social media, which is closest to.
Yeah. And I think the onus is on the brand to be able to deliver on its promise at every touch point, at every interaction, and create that unique experience for the customer, right? Whether it is in person or online. So I think every interaction with your customer, you're moving an inch forward in building that relationship and becoming a better, stronger brand, right?
Absolutely.
And like you said, it's not something that can happen overnight. Brands are definitely not built overnight. So people need to accept that, but be willing to sort of, like I said, do the long-term game for it.
Correct. And essentially, that also brings me to the question that just like organizational brands, we also have personal brands,
Yeah.
especially in today's age when we, are so active online,
Yeah.
and we may be representing our organization or we may not, but somewhere our persona also reflects on the organization. Uh, and specifically in case of the B2B part, the B2B organizations, enterprise organizations, where the the leaders, their persona, their branding also creates a lot of trust in the minds of buyers. How important do you think, first of all, is personal branding today, and whether we are practicing enough or not?
Oh, personal branding, brand building is a huge part of building the business brand because at the end of the day, especially in B2B, right? Customers are interacting with certain people in the organization. It's those people who are, giving them, the consultative services or delivering on those services. So ultimately, who these people are is very important to the customer,
Correct.
right? So if these individuals of these organizations have a unique voice, have a unique point of view, or are able to showcase some thought leadership, it
Hmm.
automatically cascades to the brand itself, right? So it's important to be able to build and showcase that persona and showcase those individual brands and build those brands in order to have that rippling effect on the business brand. So and I think that's a very, very crucial part. I think it's not been done in a very structured way as a and it's not, in fact, I won't even say that it's been a part of a must have. It's a nice to have. It's been like that so long, but I personally believe that it's very, very crucial. And how you showcase thought leadership through these individuals will definitely have a great impact and will be very favorable towards your business brand.
Especially for the startups, because they don't have the money or they don't
Yeah,
have the experience
yeah.
to have built the brand so far. So individual brands, personal brands make a lot of sense for them, especially given the fact that people say that the longevity of brands today,
Yeah,
on Fortune list also, is so ephemeral, and that's so it's a huge feat that people or brands stay relevant for their audience, stay truthful to the audience, and
yeah,
retain their brand equity for so long.
true.
That's amazing. And so that brings us to perhaps the last question. Uh, uh, what are your biggest learnings and joyful marketing moments over the last? Yeah.
Well, for me, it's always been joyful, which is why I've been here in marketing for, almost 2 decades. Um, Learnings, I think, I would say, uh, like I said, it's important to be very, very aligned and very close to business.
Hmm.
I don't think marketing can work sitting in a tower somewhere far away from business, right? That concept just doesn't fly. I think it's important to be a partner to business and stay very close to the customer. So I think marketing is as much a customer facing organization as sales is. So I think that's a huge learning that I would like to sort of tell a lot of people. Otherwise it just doesn't work. So that is one of the things. And I think the other thing is measure, right? Because I think if you're constantly monitoring, tracking, measuring everything that you're doing, you get the opportunity to fine tune your campaign. Gone are the days when you launch a campaign and then you sit back and wait for 3 months to see if it's performed well or not. You're measuring it every single day and you're tweaking the campaign
Every
as
day.
you go, right? There is, and the same goes with plans. Even your plans are iterative. Your plans are never fixed. You keep tweaking your plans based on how it's performing, how things are happening. So I think it's a very iterative approach to marketing, right? So I think that's another very important thing which I carry with me, and I tell my team that all the time.
No, absolutely. So Purnima, it was really great, very educative for me also. I learned a lot from the discussion today, and I hope that our audience also who are watching this would also have learned a lot. How can they reach you out if they have to ask a question?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to engage with them, and they can message me on LinkedIn. So I'm available.
That's nice of you. Thank you once again. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank